Jim here again with another class on risk reduction for property managers. This one's going to focus on tenants, and we're going to talk about both naughty tenants and desperate tenants.
When it comes to property management, if you haven't been sued, you haven't been doing this long enough or have enough business. I've been managing properties for over 20 years, and I'm going to share with you a lot of tips and techniques that will avoid lawsuits. In the previous video, we covered extensively the purpose of pre-screening. It's so important that I think it bears repeating again. If you have effective pre-screening techniques, you will eliminate potential lawsuits. Your more prospects are going to equal better quality tenants, and your better quality tenants are going to be the ones that are not going to sue you.
So now that your prospect has survived all that preliminary screening, we're going to kind of dig into the details of accurate and effective background checks. We want to verify everything that we already believe.
So when you pull the credit report, you're going to be looking at specific types of derogatories and how recent they are. You also don't want to deal with anyone who has no credit history. People with no credit history are the ones that have not bought into the system of being responsible. Crashing tenants are the ones that you want to avoid at all cost. So you're going to be looking at the trend of the derogatories. If you have someone that's in the middle, someone who has random derogatories, it typically means they're a younger adult who really doesn't really pay attention to their credit. A beautiful thing about a credit score is if your applicant doesn't meet your minimum score requirements that you had advertised for the property, you can get rid of them. You can throw that fish back in the water because they didn't meet your requirements. If you weren't excited about them during the preliminary screening, this is your chance to do it legally. There are some exceptions to the credit. Some of the exceptions that I have in my business include medical, education, small utilities, and small phone. On the medical, you will frequently see one or two medical bills on there. My experience is if someone has dozens of medical collections on them, I won't take them simply because they're sick all the time. And if they're sick all the time, they can't pay rent. Education is another thing that you will see on derogatory reports. And unfortunately, it's quite the conspiracy. There are a lot of kids out there that just got hammered with education, and that's another discussion. Then there's small utility collections. Occasionally I get these weird $40 collections from like Southwest Gas or something like that. It's usually because the tenant prospect didn't even know about it. And the same occurs with small phone collections. It'll be often that a young adult gets a phone in another state and they forget all about it, and Sprint's trying to chase them down for $40. So in summary, if I can see that there's only a few medical or education or utility collections or phone collections, I will make the exception to the credit. The order in which you get a background check and a landlord statement regarding their rent history isn't always in perfect order. Sometimes I'll get landlord response before I'll get the credit. So it is not uncommon for a tenant to sing their country western song about their landlord. My landlord never listens, never fixes anything around the property. So if you get one of those, you're done. You never really want to follow up on someone you can't get rental history from. Here are the top reasons to be suspicious of someone's rent history. If they state that the HVAC never works, roaches are everywhere, the landlord's a jerk, the landlord's out of the country, and of course, if the landlord is a relative, that history is meaningless as well. So no matter what you do, never, ever, ever, never rent to someone without solid rent history or a history of owning a home. Be sure when you're doing the rental history background check that the landlord that the tenant put down as a reference actually matches tax records. You want to be certain that the person is not their friend or family. So you have your standard questions you're going to ask the landlord. You're going to ask how long they were renting from them, what they paid, did they pay on time, did they get any HOA love letters. Some other things can include when was the last time they inspected the property, did the tenants give you proper notice, did they have any pets, and would you rent to them again? I recommend that you be careful about tenants that are transitioning from a multifamily to a single family. Some tenants have no idea that houses require a lot more effort to maintain. So I usually don't give a lot of weight to tenants that have a average rent history that are coming from a multifamily. If you get a rent response that it's vague, would rent to them again if qualified, I would recommend that you get the tenant to provide you a ledger or have the property manager provide you a letter. If you can't get satisfied with those answers, I would not move forward unless they have stellar credit. What's sad is you can't really trust all landlords. The current landlord that the tenant occupies the property with may not be telling you the truth. It is not uncommon for a desperate landlord to try to get rid of their pain in the neck tenant and potentially lie to you. And a lot of times they'll give you that lame response, would rent again if qualified. So be careful about those. Make sure you get a tenant ledger if you get one of those responses. Honestly, the second landlord or the landlord 2 leases ago have more value. The landlord prior to the current landlord is the most likely to tell you the honest truth. They don't have a vested interest on the outcome of your decision, and they actually did a walkthrough with the tenant. They collected rent and they did a security deposit disposition. They're going to tell you the truth.
So let's say you've done all this filtering and background checks, and you have a prospect that's a little bit on the fence in terms of either their credit history or their rent history. If you don't really know what to do with the client, what you can do is you can mitigate your risk by keeping the lease short.
We're all human. We do make mistakes, and sometimes if I feel like I might be making a mistake, I'll keep that lease short, increase the security deposit, and do an inspection within a few months of them moving in. Worst case scenario, I'll give them a 30-day notice, and we are done. No matter what you do, never ever collect a huge amount of rent in advance. It becomes difficult to evict someone over a nuisance, and right now, especially, it's very difficult. So when you're moving forward with your tenant and you're going to generate some documentation prior to the move-in, of course, we want to include your lease, your disclosure of principals, and lead-based paint. There's some other disclosures that your broker may require, but I think these 3 are essential. We're gonna go into lease details a little bit later, but I do want to kind of talk a little bit about disclosures of principals. I know a lot of property managers out there that actually own property and manage it themselves and don't disclose to the tenant that they are the principal owner of the property because they have it buried in an LLC or a trust. This will bite you. So if you do own your own property and you do manage it, you do want to disclose that you're the principal. One of my property managers did not disclose she was a principal, and the real estate division fined her $1,000. So, and by the way, we have an open case with that prospect because she didn't do my training. I also want to talk about lead-based paint. Your professional rent dodgers love this one. So if you have an older property, make sure you do a lead-based paint disclosure because you can get taken to the cleaners. And another tip is if you're managing a multifamily, I highly recommend that you only do short-term leases. The reason why you want to keep short-term leases on multifamily is because if they become naughty, it's much easier to get rid of them on a 30-day no cause than it is on a nuisance. I'm not going to bore you with the details of generating a lease. If you're taking this class, you know what a lease looks like and what should be in it. There are some items on leases that I think is important that you have in your lease that's in regard to procedure. And probably the number one headache in my life is home warranties. You want to make sure that they understand what the home warranty process is. And when it comes to appliances, in our leases, we make the tenants responsible for appliances. If a stove breaks or refrigerator breaks down, it is the tenant's responsibility. However, if the tenant has been excellent and been there a couple of years, a owner will typically provide that to the tenant. Pest control is clearly a tenant responsibility because that's a blank check if you make the landlord responsible for pests. And then you should also cover your maintenance processes. And let's talk a little bit about renter's insurance. I'm not entirely convinced renter's insurance is in the best interest of a tenant, and I think some property management companies insist on it so that they can have another additional revenue stream, or they insist on it so that they're double protected. I mention renter's insurance in my lease simply so that we can have a discussion about when the HVAC goes out. When the HVAC goes out and they don't have renter's insurance, they are going to be suffering, and especially if they have a home warranty. If you have a tenant has a air conditioner out in July and has a home warranty, they're going to get killed, and you're most likely going to lose a tenant on top of it. So I put in my lease agreement that if you choose not to get renter's insurance and when the HVAC goes out, it will be your responsibility to go stay at the Bellagio or Motel 6 on your own dime.
A poor move-in process will bite you in the end when you do your walkthrough. By having a really good move-in process and a checklist, you'll mitigate lawsuits.
So here are some short lists of items, of course, you want to cover in your move-in process. Access, gate access, where the keys are located, any HOA links to the CC&Rs, what utilities are included, what the responsibilities are, if they find pests, what to do about it, and you want to reiterate that they're responsible for appliances if that's in your lease. Don't forget, of course, you need to go over your payment procedures, your maintenance procedures, and what to do about the move-in. So here's a screen recording of my email that I send to tenants once I send them a lease to sign electronically. I kind of express to them or explain to them that they can sign electronically, and there's some links there that will have some disclosures if they're necessary. And it also kind of covers, how to log into their tenant portal, and that we'll keep marketing the property until they've paid their security deposit. We give them their mailbox number, their gate code, their link to their HOAs, the 30-day grace period that we give them on the move-in. We kind of cover the home warranties, garage remotes, gate remotes, mailbox keys, utilities, and with links directly to the utilities. And I just cut out the ones that don't belong to them. I go over the appliances. Air conditioning, we go over in detail and what happens when it fails. We also review landscaping if required, security and pest control, and this is quite extensive, so it's not uncommon for me to send this welcome email a couple of times. Some of my property managers physically do a walkthrough with prospective tenants or the tenants that are moving in. I think it's a great idea. They also charge that tenant for the move-in process, and the tenants are aware of that before they sign the lease, so there's no misunderstanding about that fee for doing the move-in. Me personally, I'm too lazy. I'm not going to drive across town to open a door, and I don't need the money. So if you're doing a physical walkthrough with a tenant or not, just be sure that you're consistent so that when you do the walkthrough in the end, when they move out, you don't have any problems. We don't use move-in checklists. What I do is I give the tenants 30 days to document anything that's wrong with the property. I'm pretty fair about that. If they're reasonable with the property, take good care of it, I usually give all their security deposit back. If there is a ding beyond wear and tear, then I will go back to them and say, hey, did you take a picture of this before you moved in? So this is rarely a problem for me. But I give them plenty of time to record and document anything that could be wrong. You don't want to leave your tenants hanging after they move in. You want to follow up with them at least day 25 to confirm that they completed their list as to what was broken or needs to be repaired, or any cosmetics issues that needed to be documented. This is also a good time to make certain that they understand their responsibilities as far as the landscaping and maintenance procedures. I like to reemphasize our maintenance hotline so that they can call that number from here on out. I don't want tenants calling me from now on. What I love about the Appfolio system is that it provides a survey to all the tenants that move in. And if you're a broker, you really want to pay attention to this because you get to see the surveys of not only your move-ins but also your agents. This is very important because you want to make certain that your property managers are following procedures. If you're getting a negative review on the survey, it means your property manager is probably not doing something correctly. The other huge benefit to this is that your tenants get an opportunity to get something off their chest and not vent at Yelp or Google reviews. You want to nip that in the bud. If you are not using Appfolio, don't panic. Google Forms is an alternative solution. There's a bunch of other survey tools out there that are free. And the other benefit is when your tenants fill out the survey, and if you can fix the problem, you can mitigate the opportunity for them to give you a bad review on social media. As you know, you can't bury bad reviews. The best you can do is overwhelm social media with really good ones. Inspections of properties are essential, and video is your best friend. By getting video of your inspection, you can accurately describe the condition of the property and explain it to your owner. It will be super invaluable also on your move out. By the way, in this market, I have sold 2 or 3 properties that are tenant occupied and used the inspection video as a way to explain the condition of the property to the buying agent. Most of those properties close quickly and some without an inspection. When you do your videos, be certain to describe exactly what you see. You want to discuss broken or missing items with the tenant present, and then you want to educate your tenant on pest control, discuss the benefits of changing air filters, and then follow up on any mechanical issues. If your tenant calls you or maintenance and says that they have pest control or roach issues, you need to drop everything you're doing and head over to the property immediately. There's a good chance they're throwing a roach party, and you want to do that inspection before they have time to clean up the kitchen. Here's an example.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Cops.
Pardon?
You here for cops?
No.
Or no for the house?
No, I'm Jim.
Oh, Jim. Okay. I know I got 2 people today.
Right on.
Sorry to finish this.
That's okay.
I know I'm early, but I know the spot when I get everybody home.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been that problem. But I haven't been seeing them ever since I bombed.
Mm-hmm.
So I do see them a little bit, but not as much.
Right.
I had this stove since about 4 or 5 years since I've been here.
When's the last time you cleaned it?
Honestly, when she told me to last year. But underneath here is where I want to go clean up at.
Okay, so we'll get your soap clean, but the problem is, the reason why you have roaches is you're throwing a roach party.
She told me this was bug infected before I came.
Mm-hmm.
Which it was.
Right. See, I'm seeing food right here, like laying on the floor.
That came from today. That's just because I haven't cleaned up today.
Right.
Other than that, I cleaned my house. And it can't be the food problem. That probably is the only problem you can see in here. Other than that,
You mean all the food laying on the floor?
I have kids. I didn't clean up today. You see still dishes in them. So I sweep every day. I do all that.
When your lease expire?
It probably been expired. Such I've been in this plumbing for 4 years.
Yeah.
These inspection videos are invaluable on the move out as well. If you have a tenant who disputes your disposition for your security deposit, it's really easy to pull up a video and say, in this section of the video, you explained how you broke the refrigerator door. I use video for dispositions all the time, and it keeps me out of court. Occasionally, you're going to run into tenants who become unstable, and a sign of that is they will dodge you on inspections. They will come up with a million reasons why you can't do an inspection, and you get stiff-armed all the time. So if a tenant is stiff-arming you on those inspections, you need to get on that, because it's likely to be someone who is a hoarder, who has some sort of mental issue.
I can't do that. This, I'm going through some stuff. So I tried to bring it all in.
This isn't good, sweetie.
I know. I'm cleaning this up.
Do you need help?
No. I'm getting help myself through my insurance. So I struggle with depression.
Okay.
And it got really, really bad. I just didn't really want to do anything. Went to work, came home, took care of my daughter.
Do you have family here?
I have my husband and my mother-in-law
Where's your husband live?
here.
In this unit?
Yes.
Hmm.
He's kind of been really down with me. I know.
You can, hey, listen, you can do this. You just need to take this stuff to the garbage.
Yes, sir.
I will chat with you in about a week, okay? Does your husband work?
Yes, he does. He just started full-time in his facility. He just got transferred. Between struggling with my depression, I've been trying to work 50, 60, 70-hour weeks if I can. I'm not spending a lot of time here.
So don't let this happen to you. This tenant stiff-armed me for about a year and a half before I realized it was completely out of control. You don't want this to happen to you. So when a tenant is stiff-arming you on your inspections, get on that right away, and then try to help them find another place. Unfortunately, I did not get rid of this tenant fast enough. COVID hit, and it took me another 6 months to get rid of her. It was an awful experience for her and for my owner. Now that we've wrapped up inspections, this is a great opportunity to chat about your maintenance processes. Your maintenance processes are the key to preventing all your frivolous lawsuits. With proper documentation, video, photo, and logs of all the events that have occurred, you can mitigate all these slip and falls. So in your maintenance process, we're going to cover your dedicated phone line or maintenance hotline, a log, text messages, your vendor cooperation, and your tenant follow-up. When it comes to your maintenance hotline, I recommend either using a Google Voice or a dedicated answering service. Either way, you're going to have a consistent method for tracking inbound maintenance. When you have that call log and you go to court, you're going to be able to demonstrate that any tenant who's trying to dodge rent, that you're consistent on responding to maintenance events. What I love about Google Voice is that it translates the content of the message from the tenant into text, and that text is converted to an email, and that email is sent to both my maintenance manager as well as myself. And as you can see here, this is kind of an example of who called in and what they had to say. And another benefit is it has the phone number connected with that call-in. The judge is more likely to believe you when you have demonstrated a sequence of inbound phone calls. All of your vendors need to be your ally. You want to train your vendors to use ample photos and video when they do the repairs. Before and after video or before and after photos are invaluable, and they will go a long way in court, especially if you get into a hostile situation. All of your communication with your tenants during the maintenance process should be handled through texting or email. I kind of like AppFolio in that all the texting can be done between my maintenance staff and the tenant, and it's collected all in one space. This is a beautiful thing whenever you go to court and you have a rent dodger.
So we're wrapping up this video, and we covered the importance of a thorough background check, having your leases cover all your processes for both payment and maintenance. We also covered inspections and why they're so important. You need to follow up on all your tenants to make certain that they're happy frequently, because if there's a problem, you want to be able to jump on it. And then lastly, when we cover the maintenance processes, you want to make certain that you're consistent there and have a log as well as follow-up documentation of photo and video of everything that happened. If you do those things, you're not going to get all those nasty slip and falls.